Unfortunately, we've got a little bit of a problem. We've got deer all over the property, and Ranger just took off after 2, and he's been gone for about 10 minutes. He's done this several times before, and I got this tracking device, and it's not working. The story I'm sharing with you today is painful for our family. It ends with our dog Ranger recovering on a surgical table with over 50 pellets embedded in his body after getting shot with a shotgun. We're still processing and still in a bit of shock. For several days, I've deliberated on whether or not I should tell this story here. It's graphic, it's traumatic, and it opens the door to great controversy and debate. All of which are things that I prefer to avoid in general, especially for the sake of our children. Good?
Yep.
Boy, do we have a story to tell you, right?
But ultimately, I decided there was value in sharing this story with you because it could save another dog's life.
Today started turning out
The best day ever.
as the best day ever. Yeah, it was amazing. It's spring and it's t-shirt weather and just big, bright, blue, beautiful sky and sunshine, right? And the geese are flying and walking through the yard. The flies have hatched, which we're not real excited about, right? Because they bite. And just a beautiful, beautiful morning, actually.
I filmed this video with my 6-year-old daughter, Isla, about 30 minutes after we had gotten home from the veterinarian's office.
The day started out really well, but I'm gonna get straight to it and let you know that it ended up being one of the worst days that we've had up here, all in a matter of minutes.
While it appears that I was fully composed, the truth is that inside, I was a complete wreck, but I was holding it together and appearing strong for my girls.
So Isla and I came outside, right? We were walking over to the shop, and on our way out, Isla accidentally slipped. You want to tell that part of the story?
And then
Come closer so they can hear a little bit better.
I gave both girls the choice of participating in the recording of this video, and Isla wanted to, but Alina declined. She was still pretty shook up and wasn't feeling comfortable talking about it on camera.
and then I started hugging my mom. And then we both looked up, hearing a sound.
Yeah.
Out comes the deer, a skinny baby deer, and Ranger chasing it.
Yeah, and they ran right past us. The deer almost ran into us.
It was like 10 feet away from
Yeah,
us.
it was at least 5 to 10 feet at the most, I should say, away from us. And it was so cute and it was so fast. And Ranger was like chasing after it as fast as he could, right? And of course, you know, we don't encourage our dog to chase deer. And he's been doing that for a while now. But, you know, I immediately yell for him and call him off. But sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. And he didn't. He just kept going, and they went up behind the mobile home, still chasing the deer, and then they cut across the road, and then they went down to the creek, and I was calling him, and he wasn't coming back. So about 2 minutes later, after me calling, right, he did come back, and he was soaking wet. So he ended up in the creek, right down here somewhere, right? And his little tracking device on his collar got wet, and it's not waterproof. So obviously we need to rethink that and get a better tracking device for him. So anyway, he came back. So I, of course, praised him. I was really glad that he was back and that everything was fine. And we were about to move on with our day. And then all of a sudden, Ranger spots another deer right over here by the hot tub. And he takes off after it, and I see this white fluffy tail going down the steps toward the creek, and Ranger took off after the deer, the second deer. And that was the last I saw of him for about, like 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah. he was gone. And we stayed out here and we were yelling at him and calling for him. And, because we have about 20 acres of land and we have no problem with him roaming our land, but he doesn't know our borders. He doesn't know where our land stops and where our neighbor's land begins. And so we don't allow him to just take off and roam and go wherever he pleases. So he's supposed to stay with us, but his dog instinct to chase these deer just takes over. So anyway, half an hour, 45 minutes later of me calling and yelling, I even started the car up, thinking maybe if he hears the car start up, he'll, come back. And honking the horn and blowing my bear whistle and just making as much noise as possible to get him to come back. And he wouldn't come back. And Isla here was getting really worried, weren't you?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that for just a minute?
And then I went inside crying.
Yeah, why were you worried?
Because I thought that he could have gotten shot or he got horned by a buck.
Yeah, and these are real threats up here in North Idaho. Being out here in the woods like this. So anything could happen, and we just, really wanted our dog to come home. But there wasn't really anything we could do. The tracking device that I had wasn't working. He wasn't coming when I was calling him. And I was feeling like we were probably just gonna have to put on our boots and walk around the perimeter of the property, just expand our location that we were calling him from, and hopefully he would come back. He's done this a couple of times before where he was gone for like 45 minutes and he came back. And I'm not good with that. I'm not good with just saying, oh, well, he'll come back. Because worst case scenario could happen, and today it did. Yeah, worst case scenario happened today. Well, it could have been a whole lot worse, because I'm gonna let you know right now that he's alive. He's fine. He's inside the house and he's resting and recovering. But he got shot in the face. Our neighbor shot our dog in the face. So, pretty gnarly. And there's gonna be some graphic content and some graphic images that I'm gonna be sharing with you. So just a heads up on that to make sure that your audience can handle it, but I'll keep it clean. So anyway, Alina and I were outside and we were just calling him and really just bummed and worried and not sure what to do. And then all of a sudden we heard 2 shots, really loud, really close by. And I looked at Alina and she looked at me, and we both just knew. And Isla came rushing outside right away also because she heard it, and she was also worried because we've told the girls, the reason why we can't let Ranger run around is because if he wanders onto somebody else's property, they don't know him, they have the legal right to shoot. So as soon as we heard the shots, I said, get in the car, and we bolted to the car, and then we heard a 3rd shot actually just as we were approaching the car. I ran inside to grab my phone because I needed to call David. He's in Florida on a business trip. And as I was coming back outside to get in the car, my adrenaline is still pumping right now, so I'm having a hard time
He came back.
getting this out. Yeah, he came back. I looked down the road and I saw Ranger running toward me, and he was right down the road in front of Dad and Carol's house. And after seeing the shape of his body, the next thing that I really noticed was that his whole face was just red. And he approached, he ran up to us. The fact that he was able to run home is good news. But his whole right side of his face was just bloody, dripping blood. He had blood coming out of his mouth. He couldn't really open his right eye. And I examined it just really quickly, and his whole eye was just red, but all of his tissue in his eye was intact, so that was good. So the girls were already in the car, buckled up. I got him in the back of the Subaru, And we started driving, and we drove out our road. I called David, and then I called our vet, and I let him know that we were coming in. When they answered the phone, they asked if they could put me on hold, and I said no because my dog just got shot in the face and I'm bringing him in right now. And they said, we'll have a room ready for you. And so sure enough, as we pulled into the vet clinic, they opened the door and they got him in right away. Ranger was still upright at this point, but I could see that he was kind of going into shock. He was shaking. I was shaking. The girls were shaking. I'm still shaking just from the adrenaline of all of it. So the vet examined him, and he had a big welt on the side of his face, and it just appeared to be swollen tissue. And then upon closer inspection, we could see that there was an entry point. And that's when we confirmed it was definitely a bullet or a pellet. So they sedated him and they got him up on the table, on the x-ray table, and they took x-rays and they called us in and they showed us that he had, she counted at first about 30 or 40, but then closer inspection, she saw about 50 pellets from a shotgun blast. So one of our neighbors out here shot our dog in the face with a shotgun. And what did you say? What did you say you wanted to do when you found out?
I wanted to hit my foot on them.
Yeah, she wanted to kick him.
Because I was super upset.
Yep. I wanted to kick him real hard too, honey. But the fact is, our dog ran onto somebody else's property. And when a stray dog runs onto your property up here, the law is on your side and you have the authority, you have the right to shoot it. These pellets are stainless steel, and they're no longer made out of lead, so there's no urgency in removing the pellets from his body. They just leave him in, actually. So our dog is now loaded with stainless steel pellets in his head and in his chest and in his front legs. Even got him in his tongue. He's got one that's about ½ an inch from his eye. So he got really lucky, because had he been hit in the eye with a pellet, he would have lost that eye for sure. I don't believe that he would have been able to use that eye anymore. So he got really lucky.
Ranger spent about an hour on the table under light sedation while they cleaned up all of the wounds that they could find. And once he became alert enough to stand up and walk, we were able to take him home.
Hey, buddy, we're home. We're home. Ready? Can you do this? Don't worry, I'll pick you up, okay?
Right now, we're just really glad that we have our dog back and that he's gonna be okay. Obviously, we need to come up with a better way of keeping him on our property. We can't just let him, I mean, he was right here with us, like right here in the meadow, and just took off after a deer, and we've been trying really hard to train him. Basically, what it comes down to is we live out in the wilderness, right? It's a dangerous place out here. Our neighbors saw cat tracks in their backyard the other day. So we just have to be really careful around here, and obviously we have to just keep our dog with us, I guess, on a leash at all times. For anybody who loves your animals, and if you're living in the wilderness like this, do whatever you can to make sure that they don't end up on somebody else's property, because you just never know who's gonna pull out their shotgun and shoot your dog in the face. All right, you guys. Well, I'm just gonna go try to chill out and relax a little bit. I'm still shaky from the whole ordeal, and just need to relax and cuddle with our dog, right?
Yeah. I imagine any animal lover watching this can relate, or at least try to understand the overwhelming emotions we've experienced through this ordeal. Shock, horror, anger, disgust, fear, regret, and shame. Our dog is part of our family, and like a child, we are responsible for their safety and well-being. We may never find out exactly what led someone to do this, but if they were truly in fear for themselves or their own animals, I am sincerely sorry, and I can promise it will never happen again. But I owe an even greater apology to Ranger and Alina and Isla. This was an incredibly traumatic experience for them, and it could have been prevented. Which brings me back to my whole purpose in why I'm sharing this story with you. If the humility of sharing our experience with others saves one dog's life, then at least we can feel like something good came out of this. As we're preparing to break ground and begin building our new home within a few short weeks, we're prioritizing our plan to ensure that Ranger never steps foot on an unknown neighbor's land again. His wounds are slowly healing, but he's still in a lot of pain and discomfort, and he's still avoiding opening his right eye. So I'm concerned that there may be more damage there than we were initially aware of. So we'll continue to watch him closely and love on him and keep him comfortable.